Welcome back to Short Recaps. Today I'm going to explain a movie called Chained, released in the year 2012. The film starts with a family going to the cinema, but their father just drops them off, because he should go to work. And he can't pick them up, so he asks them to take a taxi when going back to home. After watching the movie, the son and mother went home by taxi. At first there was nothing suspicious, while telling the taxi driver his home address. But one time the driver turned in the wrong direction, and did not take them to their destination. The mother sensed that something was wrong and started to panic, so she tried to open the door, but the driver locked it. The taxi driver then stopped at a deserted place, and beat the mother until she passed out. Then they were taken to the taxi driver's house, and the mother was immediately pulled and kept away from her child. The mother told her son to cover his ears when he heard a scream to keep him calm. The young child could not do anything, and only cried until peeing in his pants, because he was so scared. The child was also dragged by the psychopath taxi driver, and said that his mother was gone forever, and would not take care of him anymore, hearing that the little boy just cried and missed his mother. The next day the little boy was told that the psychopath's name was Bob. Bob ordered the boy to obey his orders without exception, assigned to clean the house of the former murder. The little boy also has to prepare breakfast, while himself is not allowed to eat anything without orders. If he wants to eat, he can only enjoy the leftovers on Bob's plate. For his additional task, the child must collect missing persons information from the newspaper and paste it into book. At the end of the explanation, Bob says that he will call the little boy as Rebbit. When in the morning, Rebbit was told to clean Bob's house, and only had breakfast with leftover pizza on Bob's plate. At that time Rebbit intended to escape from this psychopath's house. Rebbit tried to escape through the ceiling. But apparently Bob had suspected Rebbit's behavior, and was waiting for him outside the house. When on the roof, Bob deliberately let Rebbit scream as he pleased. So Rebbit knew that no one would help him, because Bob's house had no neighbors, and was isolated. As a result of trying to escape, Bob's legs were tied by chains. So that Rebbit doesn't try to run away again, Bob then installs CCTV in his house. Every day Bob kidnaps women just to fulfill his desires. After that the victims will be killed by Bob, and the former evil deeds done by Bob are Rebbit's job to clean up. It became a routine for Rebbit for 20 years, where every day Rebbit witnessed the evil things Bob did. When Bob gets a male passenger, namely a father and a son, Bob heard that the child was being scolded by his own father. At that time Bob's expression looked depressed and uncomfortable hearing the shouts. Arriving at the house, Bob still looks depressed and asks Rebbit. Bob asks what good things his father did when he was a child, but Rebbit himself could not answer Bob's question. Then Bob gave a book on human anatomy for Rebbit to study. Bob feels that currently Rebbit is his own son, and to fill his spare time, Bob says he'd better learn about the anatomy of the human body. If he has mastered what is in the book, Bob promises to release him. But Rebbit only asked to meet again with his father. Bob immediately showed a photo of his father, who already has a new wife. In other words, currently Rebbit only has Bob as his family. Every day Bob did kidnapping as his routine, while Rebbit was busy learning about human anatomy. Bob, who already considers Rebbit as his son, and to test his learning abilities, Bob always asks Rebbit about anatomy. From childhood until now, Rebbit always spends his life watching what Bob has done to his victims. And to entertain himself, Bob always invites Rebbit to play magic cards. A psychopath's card game is also different from the normal game, where they both have to guess the identity of the victim kidnapping, in the form of the name, age, and character of the victim. One night, Bob, who was sleeping, had a dream about his past. In that dream, Bob's father was seen, who always tortured his younger brother, and also Bob. As an older brother, Bob has always been the object of his father's anger. Even Bob was also told to sleep with his own mother. The incident when Bob was a child made him traumatized, and did not have social relations with anyone. Because of his past, maybe the reason Bob always targeted women as victims of his kidnapping and avoiding a man. The next day, Bob deliberately kidnapped a prostitute woman to be used as a final test for Redbit. Bob killed the drunk woman by cutting her neck. Then he asked Redbit which part he just injured. Redbit quickly replied that the knife hit the carotid artery. Heard the answer, Bob was happy with the results of his study. Then Redbit was asked to choose a girl from the school yearbook. Bob wanted Redbit to feel what he felt for the first time. But Redbit refused Bob's orders, because Bob would immediately kill that choice. Bob, who was angry and saw the frightened Redbit, felt sorry for him and let go of the chains on his legs. After that, Redbit was again forced to choose a girl from the yearbook. Redbit, who continued to refuse, was finally forced by Bob to choose a woman, with Redbit's hand being forced to choose. Finally, an 18-year-old girl named Angie would become the first victim of Redbit. Bob immediately kidnapped Angie and told Redbit to see the girl of his choice. Bob said that this was training for Redbit, to make Bob believe in him. Bob then sent Redbit to the room and told Redbit to sleep with Angie. If Redbit didn't do it, then Bob would kill Angie himself. Then Redbit was left alone with Angie in the room. Redbit said to Angie that he didn't want to kill Angie at all, because Angie is a victim. Hearing Redbit's words, Angie started to like him and offered to sleep with him. But Redbit didn't want anything from Angie. Even so, Angie still tried to seduce Redbit. When he was about to do something, Bob suddenly opened the door and shouted. At that time, Redbit stabbed Angie in the stomach, because Redbit knew that was what Bob wanted to see. After that, Redbit dragged Angie's body into a secret room to be buried. Then Redbit went to Bob and said he wanted to hunt another woman. The next day, Bob was seen preparing to hunt with Redbit. Bob also bought a new chair, which was placed next to his chair to sit together with Redbit. After that, Redbit looked neat, so he didn't look suspicious. Redbit looked again at the taxi that had kidnapped him and his mother, and remembered what had happened to them at that time. Arriving in town, Redbit was told to choose the type of victim he wanted, but none of the women caught Redbit's attention. Seeing a police car passing in front of him, Bob immediately pulled over to the side of the road. Redbit was told to hide so as not to be seen by the police. Bob accidentally saw a reflection in the mirror and realized that Redbit had written the word help on the side of his car. Due to Redbit's actions, Bob became distrustful of Redbit and returned to his house. Redbit wrote a word of help when he pretended to see the back seat. Angie wasn't really dead either. Redbit stabbed Angie in a non-vital part. Redbit also asked Angie to pretend to be dead. Besides that, Redbit also gave Angie a flashlight and a knife when Angie was buried in a secret room. Arriving at the house, Bob, who was angry and did not believe in Redbit, immediately punched him until he passed out and was about to open Angie's grave. Redbit woke up after hearing Bob scream and tried to get into the house. When Bob opens Angie's grave, Bob is surprised by the glare of the flashlight, and Angie directly cuts Bob's Achilles tendon with a knife, causing Bob to be in pain and difficult to stand. At that moment, Redbit, who had managed to get into the house, immediately ran to Bob and killed him in the carotid artery. Angie, who looked so weak, could only see it all. Then Angie, who was saved by Redbit, was seen sleeping, while Bob, who had been killed by Redbit, was buried in a secret room. After all that, Redbit visits his dad's house named Brad, and it's true what Bob says, that his dad has a new family and doesn't remember Redbit, who has been missing for 20 years. Redbit also said that he was his son named Tim. When he found out Tim was still alive, he immediately hugged him tightly. Tim was invited into the house until finally Redbit gave a letter to his father. The letter contained his father's secret, who ordered his brother named Bob to kidnap Redbit and his wife after watching a movie and give money to Bob. It turned out that for 20 years, the brain behind the kidnapping and murder was his own father. That's why his father told Redbit and his mother to take a taxi home. It was all his father's plan to find another woman. Brad's new wife, the one holding the letter, opened it and found a photo of Redbit's mother and Redbit, and the letter and a check which will be cashed into money as Redbit said. After everything was revealed, Brad also showed his true self and slapped Redbit many times. At that time his wife immediately ran to stop Brad, but Brad also abused his wife. Rebbit, who did not like to see women being tortured, immediately beat his father in the head to death. Brad's wife, who saw that, also helped Rebbit. She let Rebbit go and then called the police, with the excuse that her husband was killed by a group of people who broke into her house. After that, the film ends with Rebbit being shown returning to Bob's house and living with Angie, who has fallen in love with him. That's all for this movie. Thank you for watching. See you and look forward to the next video.